The Nevada desert shimmered beneath the relentless sun, its silence broken only by the crunch of gravel under worn hiking boots. Danielle Caldwell squinted into the glaring light bouncing off the red sandstone towers of Red Rock Canyon. At 29, her once hopeful weekend search missions had become ritualistic, a grim commitment fueled by love and loss. Every Saturday for nearly 4 years she returned to these brutal trails, searching for something beneath it. Her sister Marissa had vanished here with her husband Ethan. They were on what was supposed to be their final adventure before welcoming their first child. But the desert had swallowed them whole. No clues, no trace. Just absence and the slow, painful erosion of hope. "Danny, we should probably think about heading back," Marcus called from behind, his voice rough from the heat. He was a regular, one of the few who hadn't given up. Sweat soaked the collar of his shirt, and his face was flushed beneath a faded baseball cap. Danielle scanned the dwindling group. 7 people today, less than half of what they'd had during the first desperate months. Time did that. It dulled urgency, turned questions into whispers, and transformed hope into ritual. But for Danielle, this wasn't about acceptance, it was survival. Marissa had been 7.5 months pregnant when she disappeared. Danielle remembered every detail of that day. The voicemail, the last photo Marissa had sent, smiling beside Ethan, glowing in anticipation of motherhood. Danielle couldn't accept the official silence. Their parents had died in a car accident 6 years earlier, making Marissa her only remaining family. She pulled out her GPS device, methodically marking the day's search grid. Over the years, she had developed a system, section by section, tree by tree, rock by rock. The police had long closed the active case, only reopening files when tips came in, but Danielle never stopped. She couldn't. This canyon still held her sister, and she needed to find her. "All right, everyone," she called out, her voice echoing off the sun-scorched cliffs. "Pack it up. Make sure you've got all your gear." By the time they reached the parking lot, the sun was high, the heat merciless. Danielle popped the trunk, tossing her gear inside, when her phone buzzed back to life. No signal in the deeper canyons, but now bars appeared. The screen flooded with missed calls, texts, voicemails, all from the same number. Detective Raymond Chen. Her heart stuttered. Hands trembling, she hit call back. It rang once. "Danielle, thank God," came Chen's voice. "I've been trying to reach you for over 2 hours. "I'm sorry, Detective. We were deep in the canyon, no signal. What happened? Is everything okay? Are you still at Red Rock?" "Yes, just got back to the lot near the visitors center. What's going on?" There was a pause. She heard voices in the background, radios, movement. "We've had a development in your sister's case. A jogger found something this morning we believe belonged to Marissa." The water bottle slipped from Danielle's hand, hitting the asphalt with a splash. Sarah and Marcus, still nearby, rushed over. "What kind of evidence?" Danielle asked, voice cracking. "I'd rather discuss it in person. Can you drive to the White Rock Hills Loop? It's on the north side. I'll send coordinates." "Yes. I'll leave right now." "Good. You'll see multiple patrol cars. You can't miss us." When the call ended, Danielle turned to the others, her voice trembling. "By Dr. William S. White, near White Rock Hills Loop." Without hesitation, Sarah placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We're coming with you." 3 more volunteers, Tom, Janet, and Phil, joined them, forming a quiet convoy. The drive was surreal. The fiery red cliffs slowly gave way to ghost-white limestone as they neared the loop, a less traveled corner of the canyon, isolated, harsh, and treacherous. Danielle spotted the police vehicles clustered around a makeshift parking area. Her hands shook as she shifted into park. Detective Chen greeted them and led them to a pair of police SUVs outfitted for rugged terrain. They drove deeper in, the path more suggestion than road, jostling through dry washes and up steep inclines, until the vehicles could go no farther. A small canopy provided the only shade. Officers, forensic techs, and rescue personnel moved purposefully around the area. As they hiked the final stretch, Chen walked beside Danielle. "I want to prepare you," he said gently. "It's not good news." Her breath caught. Every step felt heavier than the last. The canopy loomed ahead. A man with a tan face and soft eyes stood near a German shepherd. "Danielle, this is Malcolm Brandt," Chen said. "He made the discovery." Malcolm nodded, removing his cap. "I'm so sorry for what you're going through," he said quietly. "I was hiking with Bella," he gestured to the dog. "Took a trail I'd never tried before. More difficult, but I liked the challenge. Bella ran ahead, then came back with some." Danielle's eyes drifted to the evidence table. Bones, bleached, brittle, unmistakably human. Her breath caught in her throat. "It was a radius bone," Malcolm said softly, "from a forearm. I used to be a paramedic, so I recognized it right away. I marked the spot and called 911. Chen added, "There was a windstorm last night. Severe. We believe it unearthed remains that had been protected until now." Danielle stepped closer. The evidence shimmered through her tears. This was real, and it was only the beginning of what they would uncover. Danielle's knees gave out beneath her as Detective Chen pointed toward a tibia bone on the evidence table, its cold steel hardware glinting faintly in the filtered sunlight under the canopy. "This is how we confirmed it might be your sister," he said gently. "The tibia has surgical hardware. You told us she had knee surgery, remember?" "Yes," Danielle whispered, each syllable trembling. 3 years before she disappeared. A skiing accident. She had a metal plate and pins. The serial numbers on the hardware match her medical records," the detective confirmed. "We're waiting on DNA confirmation, but it's her." The sob broke from Danielle's throat like a dam bursting. Her reality splintered. Sarah instinctively wrapped an arm around her, anchoring her as she threatened to collapse. But Chen's face grew even graver. "Danielle," he said softly, "there's more. We found additional remains, much smaller bones, tucked into a crevice in the cliff face." The implication hit like a punch to the chest. "The baby," she whispered. "The forensic anthropologist believes they're consistent with a late-term fetus," Chen continued, his voice low. "There are signs of scavenger activity. Coyotes are common in this area." Danielle couldn't contain the sobs now. 4 years of holding on to the possibility, clinging to imagined scenarios where Marissa and Ethan were just lost or hiding, crumbled into dust and bone under the weight of confirmation. The finality of it was unbearable. "What about Ethan?" she managed, breath shuddering. "Did you find anything?" "No." Chen shook his head. "Nothing definitive. We've expanded the grid, but so far, no remains we can link to him." Danielle blinked, stunned. "But they were together. There's a photo. Facebook. That morning, here in the canyon." The detective's eyes were unreadable. "Yes. And that's one of the many questions we need to answer. Without his remains, or any sign of other parties, we must consider all possibilities." Her expression twisted in disbelief. "You think Ethan did this? That's insane." "He adored her. They tried for 6 years to have a baby. He was a surgeon. He saved lives. He would never." "I understand this is hard," Chen said evenly. "But when only one set of remains is found and they appear concealed, not simply lost, we have to investigate every angle." Danielle shook her head. "He wasn't even an experienced hiker. Neither of them were. I told them not to go. Marissa was nearly full term. She said it would just be a short walk. People can surprise us, Chen said gently, even the ones we think we know best. But you're right, many questions remain. That's why we're reopening everything. He gestured to the cliff face. Crime scene tape fluttered in the breeze. The remains were under that overhang. We believe the rocks sheltered them until the storm last night exposed them. What now? Danielle's voice was dull, exhausted. Everything goes to the coroner for full analysis and DNA testing. We'll need a sample from you as her biological sister, and the case is officially active again. Numbly, Danielle walked to where Malcolm Brandt stood with Bella, his loyal dog, beside him. "Mr. Brandt," she began, voice hoarse. "Thank you for calling it in, for doing the right thing." His expression softened. "I'm just sorry it had to be like this. Bella and I hike out here often, but we'd never taken that path. I guess maybe we were meant to." She nodded slowly. "Can I reach out later? My sister would have wanted me to." "Of course," he replied. "The detective has my number. Take all the time you need." Detective Chen returned. "Danielle, we should go. The forensic team will be here for hours, but there's nothing else you need to see. We'll head to the station for the DNA sample and to review the case files." The drive back blurred, heat shimmering across the desert, police radios crackling, questions without answers echoing in her mind. Media trucks and flashing cameras awaited them at the parking lot, but Danielle didn't even flinch. "You can follow us," Chen offered. "Or ride with me. One of my officers can drive your car." She looked at her hands, trembling around her keys. I don't think I should drive." "That's perfectly okay," he said gently. He motioned to a young officer. "Officer Martinez will handle your vehicle." As she slid into the front seat of the detective's car, Danielle turned one last time to look at the canyon, the place that had swallowed her sister 4 years ago, and only now, under the pressure of time and storm, began to speak. At the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, modern glass and steel shimmered in the punishing afternoon sun. Inside, Danielle followed Chen past security and through the buzzing corridors into a quiet medical examination room. A forensic technician, Teresa Hoffman, greeted her with a gentle smile. "Just a quick cheek swab, Ms. Caldwell. It'll only take a second." Danielle nodded as the cotton swab brushed against her inner cheek. It was strangely intimate, this tiny act with enormous consequence. "All done," Teresa said kindly. "We'll prioritize the comparison. You should hear back in 48 to 72 hours. Detective Chen led her upstairs to his office. It was unassuming, lined with labeled case files and a large whiteboard filled with scribbled names, dates, and arrows. He pulled out a thick manila folder. "I've reviewed everything," he said, "but I want you to walk me through it again. Sometimes what we overlook the first time becomes crucial later. Let's start with that Sunday, October 14, 2018. Danielle exhaled slowly, drawing strength from the quiet room. "She called me around 8 a.m., said Ethan had the day off. They wanted to go for a hike. I told her no. She was 36 weeks pregnant, just 4 weeks to her due date, and her knee. She'd had surgery 3 years earlier. It still gave her trouble." Chen nodded, taking notes. "And she said her OB, Dr. Patricia Morse, encouraged walking. It would help the baby descend. I told her to walk around the block, go to the mall, but they wanted a final memory together before becoming parents. Ethan had been working non-stop. For 2 hours, Chen walked through every thread. Ethan's family, deceased parents, one brother in Ohio, Marissa's small group of mom friends, their finances, comfortable, not wealthy, no signs of trouble. "I know this is hard to consider," Chen said at last, "but the reality is, we found Marissa's remains carefully hidden, and nothing, no trace of Ethan. We have to consider the possibility he was responsible. Danielle stared at him, her heart breaking all over again. But why? What possible reason could he have? They were happy. They were about to... Her voice cracked, and the room fell silent, filled only by the weight of what remained unsaid. Danielle's voice was firm, her grief momentarily masked by defiance. "You won't find anything, because there's nothing to find." Detective Chen closed the file slowly, eyes steady. "I hope you're right," he said. "But now that the case is public again and the media is stirring, we've seen it before. Cold cases heat up and ripple through people's lives in ways they never expected. If Ethan's alive, he might reach out, or someone else involved might panic." "You think I'm in danger?" Danielle asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's smart to be cautious," Chen replied. "If you notice anything unusual, calls, people watching you, anything off, you call me." Immediately. Danielle nodded, the gravity of his warning settling over her. "Has the excavation team found anything else?" "Not yet," Chen said, walking with her back toward the main corridor. "They've expended the grid. We're bringing in cadaver dogs tomorrow, weather permitting." At the elevator, a young officer intercepted them with a familiar jingle. "Miss Caldwell? Officer Martinez asked me to return your keys." Danielle accepted them with a quiet thank you and left the station, the hum of activity behind her contrasting with the eerie stillness awaiting her at home. Pulling into her garage, the door thudded shut behind her, sealing her in the solitary silence of her own home. The weight of the day descended like a storm cloud. She dropped her keys, stumbled into the living room, and collapsed onto the couch as wave after wave of grief consumed her. Tears poured from her, violent and unchecked. She stared at the wall of family photos, memories frozen in time. Her parents, smiling from a cruise ship deck. Marissa, 8 months pregnant, radiant with joy. Ethan, arms wrapped lovingly around her. Now she was the only one left. She rose, restless and aching, and drifted into her bedroom, unsure what to do with the unbearable quiet. On impulse, she opened her laptop, logging into a Facebook account she rarely used. She typed in the name, Malcolm Brandt. His profile was open. Post after post showed him hiking Nevada's most remote trails, always with Bella loyally at his side. She paused on a post from 3 weeks ago, Malcolm in front of a small cafe, holding a slice of lavender honey cake. "Best cake I've had in ages," the caption read. "Desert blooms near Valley of Fire. A hidden gem." Something about it stopped her. That cake. Lavender honey had been one of Marissa's signature flavors. Even after leaving her pastry chef job to focus on her pregnancy, she'd continued to bake. Their house had always smelled of sugar, spice, and joy. Danielle closed her laptop with purpose. A store-bought thank you wouldn't do for Malcolm. She'd bake him something from Marissa's recipes, a gesture of gratitude, and perhaps a step toward healing. But she needed Marissa's recipe book. She knew exactly where it was, tucked away at the house Marissa and Ethan once shared, a place she hadn't visited in over a year. It was just a 10-minute walk through their quiet neighborhood, the one they had chosen together to stay close. Now, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in amber and rose, every familiar sight felt like a wound. The house sat in quiet disrepair. Yellowed newspapers cluttered the porch. The lawn, once neatly trimmed, had grown wild. Danielle unlocked the door. The air inside was stale, dust-scented with loss. The sweet vanilla aroma that had once defined the space was long gone. She climbed the stairs, her footsteps hollow against the wood. The master bedroom was empty except for the ghost of someone's presence. The bed was slightly indented, evidence of a detective's search years ago. She searched the usual spots, the closet, dresser, under the bed, but nothing. Then she remembered. The hidden cabinet. Marissa had been giddy when she showed it to Danielle, disguised behind the decorative mirror above the bed. Danielle reached up and pressed the latch. The mirror swung open with a soft click. Inside was a leather-bound book, its cover embossed in gold. Marissa's recipe journal. She pulled it out with reverence, running her fingers over the familiar texture. Every page was filled with precision and love. Vanilla bean scones, raspberry tarts, lavender honey cake, each entry a snapshot of her sister's soul. Then, movement outside. A car engine idling. She froze. She crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. A dark sedan idled at the curb. 3 men stepped out. One wore a brown fedora. Her stomach dropped. They weren't knocking, they were picking the lock. Panic surged. She'd left her phone at home, assuming she'd only be gone a few minutes. Heart racing, she darted downstairs toward the kitchen. A decorative vase crashed to the floor, shattering with the sound of alarm. The men paused, then quickly backed away and returned to the car. Through the curtain, she saw the man in the hat turn, the slope of his shoulders, the profile of his face. Her breath caught. It looked like Ethan. The car sped off, disappearing into the dusk. Danielle remained frozen for a long moment, stunned. Slowly, methodically, she swept up the broken porcelain. Why would Ethan need to break into his own house? And who were the other men? She turned to call Chin, but realized the landline was dead, unpaid and disconnected. Her pulse thundered as she returned to the master bedroom. She picked up the recipe book, but her eyes drifted to a photo on the shelf. Ethan smiling at a medical conference in Reno, wearing the exact same brown fedora. He'd bought it as a joke, said it made him feel like Indiana Jones. She stared at the photo, her grip tightening. Hey, if that was Ethan outside, what did that mean about everything they thought they knew? She grabbed the photo and the recipe book, then checked every window before leaving. The house no longer felt abandoned. It felt watched. The street was empty, the mysterious sedan vanished, but the fear clung to Danielle like desert dust. Clutching the recipe book and photo against her chest, she locked the door behind her and stepped into the encroaching night. Every rustling leaf, every passing car sent her heart pounding. The 10-minute walk stretched into a nerve-wracking eternity. Only when her front door shut and the deadbolt clicked into place did she allow herself a breath of relief. Her hands still shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed Detective Chen's direct line. He answered on the second ring. "Detective, something just happened. At Marissa's house, I think someone tried to break in, 3 men. I was inside. I heard them working the lock. I knocked something over and they ran. Are you safe?" "Yes, I'm home now. But one of them, detective, I swear one of them looked like Ethan. He wore this fedora, Ethan's favorite." There was a pause on the line. "Did you get a good look at his face?" "No. Just the side of his face when he turned, but the way he moved. The hat. Why would he break into his own house if it was really him?" "What were they driving?" "Dark sedan. Black, maybe navy. I didn't catch the license plate. It was getting dark." Chen sighed. "We'll send a patrol car to sweep the area and talk to neighbors, but we can't post an officer there indefinitely unless we have more than suspicion." "But you said things might escalate after the discovery." "I did, and I still believe that. We'll increase patrols and let the neighborhood watch know. But you need to stay vigilant. If anything else happens, you call me immediately." Danielle promised she would and hung up. Her adrenaline finally dipped, leaving her lightheaded and shaky. She leaned against the counter, catching sight of Marissa's recipe book. She flipped it open to the page for the honey cake. She needed eggs, and Marissa's preferred vanilla. The real kind. A trip to the store felt manageable, maybe even therapeutic. She grabbed her purse, locked the door, and drove to the grocery store, a well-lit plaza glowing against the dark Nevada sky. She parked, ready to step out, when movement across the lot at the gas station caught her eye. 3 men stood outside the convenience store. One wore the fedora. Her breath caught in her throat. She ducked down, heart slamming against her ribs. Peering over the dashboard, she watched them. The men gathered near a black sedan, talking heatedly. "Ledger has to be careful with this search." The hat-wearing man's voice sent shivers down her spine. A 4th man emerged, wearing cartoon print veterinary scrubs, holding a small cooler. He handed it over. Then all 4 got into the sedan. Danielle's rational mind screamed to stay put. Call the police, let them handle it. But something deeper took over. She needed to know. If Ethan was involved, if he was alive, if he had answers, she had to see for herself. She started the engine and followed. Carefully, she kept 2 car lengths behind, her heart hammering louder than the road noise. The sedan obeyed every law, casual but deliberate. As they exited Las Vegas, the city lights faded behind them. Highway 160 stretched into the open desert. The farther they drove, the more isolated it became. Danielle's fear grew with every mile. Still, she stayed behind, barely tracking the taillights. She fumbled for her phone and called Chen. "You're what, following them?" "Danielle, this is reckless." "Oh, I think it's Ethan. What if it is? What if—" "What's your plan? They're dangerous and you're alone. Turn around now." Danielle slowed, reality crashing down. He was right. "Okay," she said. "You're right. I'm turning around." She searched for a spot to make a U-turn. The shoulder was soft and risky. A wider patch of pavement appeared ahead, an old construction turnout. She turned the car, headlights now pointing back to the city. Then she saw them. Headlights in the rear view, approaching fast. Her blood turned to ice. The black sedan. It was coming for her. "Oh God," she whispered, hitting the gas. Her car surged forward, but the sedan quickly gained. It pulled alongside her. She glanced left. Fedora man gestured, signaling her to pull over. She gripped the wheel, refusing. The sedan swerved into her lane. She had 2 choices, collide or veer into the sand. She chose the sand. The tires skidded. The car fishtailed wildly, dust exploding around her. She slammed the brakes. The car stopped. But there was no time. The sedan screeched to a halt behind her, cutting off any escape. She locked the doors, reaching for her phone. Gone, somewhere under the seat. The driver's door opened. Fedora man stepped out, pulling something from the trunk. "A tire iron." Danielle screamed. "Please, don't." Glass shattered, hands reached in, unlocking the door. They dragged her out, zip-tying her wrists. Someone stuffed a gag in her mouth. Her eyes blurred with tears. In the dome light, she finally saw the fedora man's face. Not Ethan. Relief clashed with fresh terror. Another man rifled through her car, taking her purse and phone. They shoved her into the back of the sedan between 2 of them. The man in scrubs, Max, they called him, kept a hand on her shoulder. "Save your energy," he said with a sick smile. "You're gonna need it." The fedora man glanced back from the driver's seat. "Told you it was her. Saw her peeking through the window. Her Civic's tint sucks." Shortly after leaving the highway, they blindfolded her. The drive was long, each bump and turn etched into her memory. Her mind spun in terror. When the car finally stopped, the desert night was silent, save for distant coyotes. They pulled her out. The blindfold came off. The gag stayed. Before her loomed a massive warehouse. Faded paint, broken windows, desolate. Until she stepped inside. Then the illusion shattered. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Inside, the warehouse was very much alive, and full of secrets she was never meant to uncover. The windows, Danielle realized, had been carefully treated with a darkened film, masking the light inside and creating the illusion of abandonment. Anyone driving by would assume the place was lifeless, but the truth was far more chilling. The man in the fedora removed his hat, running a hand through slick, greasy hair. Danielle saw his face clearly now, stockier than Ethan, with pitted scars dotting his cheeks and cold, calculating eyes devoid of empathy. "Welcome to our little operation," he said with a smile that turned her stomach. "Name's Rico. You've met Max, and over there is Chen." They forced her down a long corridor lined with rooms, some of which had their doors ajar. Inside, hospital beds filled the spaces, some occupied by unmoving figures, IV lines feeding into pale arms. Others had screens showing steady vitals. A person in scrubs moved between patients, checking monitors. Danielle's mind reeled, struggling to comprehend the horror unfolding before her. This place wasn't just hidden. It was functioning, underneath a surface of normalcy, like a parasite. They brought her to one of the rooms. Inside were more hospital beds, all outfitted with straps and monitoring devices. In another context, the setup might have brought comfort. Here, it exuded dread. Max secured her to the bed, replacing the zip ties with clinical restraints on her wrists. Only after she was fully restrained did Rico remove her gag. Danielle screamed, her voice ricocheting off the concrete walls. Rico struck her, casually and with brutal precision. Her head snapped to the side. "Do that again, and you won't live to regret it, understood?" Blood filled her mouth. She nodded slowly, tears rolling freely. "Good girl." He turned to Max. "Any word from Chad? Did he ditch her car?" "Should be taken care of by now," Max said. "He knows what to do." Daniel's voice, though weak, emerged again. "The hat. Where did you get it?" Max barked a laugh. "She knit the hat, Rico." Rico grinned. "Don't worry about it. You've got more pressing concerns. Max, bring in our surgeon." This just got even better than expected. As Max left, Rico and another scrub-wearing man wheeled Danielle's bed down another hallway. The corridor grew darker, the walls older, the air colder. Paint peeled in long strips. The overhead lights flickered and buzzed, casting uneven illumination. They passed through double doors into a room meant to resemble an operating theater, but it looked like something from a nightmare. The surgical equipment was real but aged. Shadowed corners stretched endlessly. There were no windows, no clocks, no escape. Danielle was transferred to the operating table, her pleas ignored. Rico barked, "Shut her up, but keep her awake." A syringe was produced. Danielle tried to wriggle away, but firm hands pinned her down. The needle slipped into her arm, cold and unforgiving. The drug spread quickly. Her limbs felt impossibly heavy. She could think, she could see, but she couldn't move. The worst part was the fear. It didn't fade. It sharpened. The door slammed open. 2 guards dragged in a thin, dirt-covered figure, shoving him toward the sink. Danielle's heart stopped. It was Ethan. His face was gaunt, bruises fading across his jaw. His hands, once precise and steady, shook, but he was alive. They forced him into surgical scrubs. He moved with detached obedience, but when he turned and saw who was strapped to the table, his expression cracked wide open. "Danny," he gasped. She strained to speak. "Please, whatever they want, don't." His horror morphed to rage. He rounded on Rico. "Absolutely not. I'm not doing this. I won't. Beat me, kill me, I don't care. I won't operate on her." Rico raised an eyebrow. "Your sister-in-law? Well, no wonder you were lurking around the house." Ethan's voice rose. "My house." Rico chuckled, icy and cruel. "Funny thing. We went to grab your ledger and insurance docs, just enough leverage to get you back on track. But then, surprise, this one's inside watching us. She follows us like a good little bloodhound. So, we improvised. Danielle blinked, trying to piece it all together. A ledger? Insurance? What had Ethan gotten involved in? The boss wants you back in action, Rico continued. Dominic's getting impatient. You've been stalling for weeks. So here's the deal. Get back to work, or your dear sister-in-law becomes our next donor. Ethan's jaw clenched. Rage and despair warred on his face. At last, his shoulders slumped. Fine, but she doesn't get touched. That's the deal. Rico turned to Danielle, all mock charm. See? Family love. It warms the heart. The door opened. The man from the gas station, the one in animal print scrubs, entered, wheeling in another victim. A young woman, unconscious, strapped to a stretcher. "Come over," Rico ordered. They shifted Danielle into a wheelchair, leaving her in the corner with a full view of the table. She caught Ethan's gaze. His eyes brimmed with apology, grief, and shame. Whatever this operation was, Ethan had been forced to participate. And now she was a witness, a liability. "All right, Doc." Rico clapped his hands. "Time to prove you're still useful, and train your new assistant while you're at it." He gestured toward the vet in scrubs. "Meet Dr. Paulison, animal doc. But hey, a kidney's a kidney, right?" Ethan's face twisted in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Deadly," Rico replied. "You teach him or she bleeds." Ethan closed his eyes, then moved to the table. He began preparing the anesthesia, his movements smoother now, detached, professional. "Just watch for now," he told Paulson. "This is a kidney extraction." Before he could begin, a hulking man entered the room. He crossed to Danielle and hauled her up from the chair. The sedative still dulled her reflexes. She swayed, nearly collapsing. She didn't know what was worse, what she was about to witness, or the unrelenting truth that Ethan, the man who once built a life with her sister, was now trapped in this horrific place, caught between saving lives and surviving. And now, so was she. If the guard's grip hadn't been so crushing, Danielle would have collapsed. Ethan's voice rang out from the operating room, laced with desperation. "Where are you taking her?" "That's not your concern, Doc," Rico replied coolly. "But don't worry, she stays alive as long as you keep being useful. That's the deal." Danielle stumbled along, dragged by her captor's iron grasp. Her legs were still weak, the drug's lingering effects making every step feel uncertain. He stopped at a thick steel door, unlocked it with a key, and shoved her inside. The room was a prison cell in everything but name. Concrete walls, a single bed with a paper-thin mattress, a stained bucket in the corner, one harsh bulb overhead. Nothing else. The man smirked. "Won't be long," he said, his tone twisted with anticipation. "Boss likes the new ones broken in properly." The door slammed shut behind her, the lock clicking with grim finality. Alone, Danielle took slow breaths, forcing herself to assess her surroundings. Feeling was returning to her limbs. She paced the room's perimeter, her balance improving. The bed drew her attention. Something seemed off. Sitting down, she slid her hand beneath the pillow and felt a pen. A simple ballpoint, hidden on purpose. Her pulse quickened. She ran her hands along the mattress edges and felt paper wedged between the frame and padding. She pulled out folded sheets and recognized the handwriting immediately. Ethan's. The first page was their wedding vows. Danielle's throat tightened. She remembered Ethan reading them to Marissa, his voice breaking with love. "I promise to love you through every surgery that runs late, every cake that doesn't rise, every joy and sorrow." The other pages were letters to Marissa. Grief poured off the ink. The lock clicked. Danielle stuffed the pen and papers into her jeans, tugging her shirt down. The guard re-entered, carrying leather straps, handcuffs, and a riding crop. Danielle's blood iced. "Time for your breaking session," he said, laying the items down with eerie calm. "Everyone here goes through it eventually, but you're special." Danielle backed against the wall. "You don't have to do this." He smiled coldly. "Sure I do. It's the job, the fun part." He stepped closer, relishing her fear. She forced herself to hold still, though her mind screamed. Her fingers brushed the pen hidden at her hip. One chance. "Please," she whispered, letting her voice tremble, amplifying her terror. "I won't cause trouble, I swear." He grabbed her shoulders. "That's what they all say." And she spit in his face. His fury exploded. He struck her hard. Her head slammed into the floor. Vision blurred. Stars danced. "You little..." He knelt over her, reaching for the straps. She uttered. Her hand came up fast. The pen plunged into his left eye. His scream shook the walls. He rolled away, clutching his face, blood pouring through his fingers. Danielle scrambled back, her eyes on the gun at his hip. She dove for it. His hand seized her ankle. "I'll kill you." His grip tightened. She twisted, bringing the gun around. "Let go." He didn't. She saw the knife in his boot, pulled the trigger. The shot rang like thunder. He howled, the bullet tearing through his thigh. His grip faltered. Danielle kicked free, stood, gun shaking in her hands. No one came. The room was soundproof. She aimed at the lock, fired, twice. The metal sparked, twisted. She yanked the handle. The door swung open. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in green. Empty. She ran left, feet slapping on concrete. She needed a phone, a way out. Voices ahead. She ducked into an alcove. Two men in scrubs passed by, something about a shipment. She waited, then moved. A stairwell appeared. Up or down? She chose up. Halfway up, arms clamped around her. A hand silenced her scream. Her finger found the trigger. "Don't shoot," a voice whispered. "I'm a friend. Ethan sent me." Danielle froze. "Please." "My name's Tom. Ethan saved me. I owe him my life. We've been trying to escape." He let her go. She spun, gun raised. Tom was gaunt, hollow-eyed. He lifted his shirt. A massive surgical scar stretched across his torso. 7 days ago I was supposed to die. A bad surgery. Ethan fixed it. Off the books. If they find us now, we're both dead. You can trust me, or not. But we have to go. Now. Danielle hesitated, then lowered the gun. "Where is Ethan?" "He's still in surgery. He can't leave. But he told me, if the chance came, take it. And now you're here." They moved fast. Tom knew the layout. They passed others, but no one stopped them. The motor pool, a garage. Tom's truck, an old F-150. He handed Danielle a cap, sunglasses. "Put these on. Look like you belong." She tied her hair, slid on the glasses. They drove toward the checkpoint. The guard waved them through. Freedom. Tom drove fast, heading into the desert. The stars stretched across the sky. "What was that place?" Danielle finally asked. "Organ harvesting," Tom said darkly. "Dominic Torino runs it. Homeless addicts, people who won't be missed. They keep them alive, harvest what's needed." Ethan's been their prisoner. And the ledger. All the evidence. Buyers, accounts, transactions. Enough to take them down. The gas station appeared. Danielle rushed to the payphone. 911, "My name is Danielle Caldwell. I was kidnapped. They're harvesting organs. We need help." Tom gave directions. Then she added, "Contact Detective Raymond Chen. This is connected to the Marissa Voss case." They waited. Tom parked the truck out of sight. "Not everyone in there is a monster," Tom said quietly. "But Rico and his core, they enjoy it." Minutes later, the highway darkened with vehicles, SWAT, ambulances, patrol cars. Officers approached, confirmed their story, escorted them to a mobile command center. Captain Torres debriefed them quickly. "We'll get your brother-in-law out, and the victims stay here." They were moved to a patrol car with a clear view of the road. Danielle clutched the unloaded gun. All they could do was wait. Gunfire exploded in the distance. She flinched. Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "They know what they're doing." The firefight was long, brutal. Bursts of shots, silence, then more chaos. Finally it ended. Officers emerged. Victims were carried out, walking, wheeled, unconscious. The scene transformed into a field hospital. Then the suspects. Danielle spotted Rico first, bleeding, then Max, then Polson, the so-called vet. "Where's Dominic?" Tom asked. Danielle looked. No sign. Then Ethan, escorted by officers. He looked up as she stepped out. They moved toward each other. Then, shouting, a man in a suit, guns in hand. "Dominic." He opened fire. Chaos erupted. Ethan saw him first, roared, charged, tackled him. They fought. The gun skidded. Ethan overpowered him, held a gun to Dominic's temple. "You killed my wife, my baby." Dominic sneered. "Do it." Ethan's hand shook. Tears streamed down his face. Then he lowered the gun. "I've had enough death." Officers tackled Dominic, cuffed him. Danielle ran to Ethan. He collapsed in her arms. "It was incredibly stupid," she said, holding him. "And incredibly brave. I had to stop him, couldn't let him hurt anyone else." Paramedics intervened. Chen arrived, worn but determined. "Daniel, Mr. Voss, I know you're exhausted, but I need to understand what happened." Ethan closed his eyes, then opened them. 4 years of silence were about to end. The truth came like a flood, raw, painful, and long buried. Ethan's voice was hollow, stripped of defenses. "I had a gambling problem," he began. "It started small, friendly poker games with other doctors, a little sports betting, but I spiraled. By 2018, I owed over $300,000, 0 cents. I thought they were just loan sharks. I didn't know they were connected to something so monstrous." He motioned vaguely in the direction of the now secured warehouse. Day. October 14th. Marissa wanted to go hiking. She was excited, radiant. I thought it would be one last normal day before I told her the truth. We posted a photo at Red Rock Canyon. It was geotagged. Within the hour, Dominic's men found us. His voice cracked. Danielle gently squeezed his hand. Lee demanded payment. When I couldn't pay, they threatened Marissa. Threatened the baby. She didn't know anything about the debt. She tried to call 911. He couldn't speak for a moment. Dominic shot her, point blank, said it was a lesson in cooperation. Detective Chen scribbled furiously, his expression neutral but eyes tight with emotion. He kept me alive because of the debt. Said I could work it off. As their surgeon, they dumped Marissa's body in the desert. I heard them talk about coyote activity, how quickly the remains would disappear. Then they brought me here. "And you've been here ever since?" Chen asked. Ethan nodded slowly. "At first, I believed I deserved it. I caused her death. I became who they needed me to be. I harvested organs. I stopped being a doctor. I became a butcher." He turned to Danielle, his eyes brimming. "But a few weeks ago, on our anniversary, I dreamed of her. She said she was waiting for me, but I had to stop. I had to be better. So I did. I refused. That's when they got desperate. That's when they came to our house. The ledger, Chen said. Financial records, buyer lists, I kept copies. I thought maybe someday I'd find a way out. He looked at Danielle with remorse. And you got caught in the crossfire. If I hadn't followed them. You saved lives, Tom said, stepping forward. If you hadn't escaped, more people would have died. That place would have kept going. Statements were taken, evidence logged. The scale of the crime scene would take days to process. But the worst was over. Later, as they were driven to the station in the back of a patrol car, Danielle sat beside Ethan. The air between them was heavy with memory. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered. For everything. For Marissa. For the baby. For vanishing. For the pain. Danielle looked at him, eyes wet. Marissa came to you in a dream. She forgave you. If she can do that, then maybe I can too. But Ethan? The gambling, it ends. It ended months before that day, he said, voice thick. But the debt had already devoured us. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right, starting with giving Marissa and our baby a proper burial. She nodded, her tears falling freely. From the rear window, Danielle watched Tom climb into another vehicle. Their eyes met. She mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded back, understanding in his gaze. As the patrol car pulled away from the warehouse, the chaos faded behind them. Red and blue lights cast flickers across the desert. For the first time in 4 years, they weren't fleeing the darkness. They were moving towards something unknown, but maybe, just maybe, redemptive. Ahead lay the police station, hours of paperwork, interviews, and hard decisions. But for now, in this quiet moment, they were two shattered people holding onto the fragile hope that healing could begin, and that somehow, from the ashes of all they'd lost, something new could rise.